Last week, President Putin traveled to North Korea where he met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, and so the U.S. is concerned about that relationship as it continues to grow. We heard U.S. officials express concern about the weapons that North Korea is providing to Russia for use in Ukraine, as well as concern about what advancements Russia could help North Korea make in a number of different ways.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by defense reporter Mike Brest. Mike, the risk from Hezbollah to Israel seems to be increasing. What's the status of what's going on over there?
So at this moment, there are continued rocket and missile fires going over the border on both sides. And so this has been going on all the way back since October 8th, the day after the Hamas attack that started this whole conflict. And so over the last couple of weeks, we've heard an escalation in rhetoric from both Hezbollah leaders as well as Israeli leaders threatening an all-out war. And so a conflict between Israel and Hezbollah would be much different than the conflict we've seen so far between Israel and Hamas and Gaza. A conflict between Israel and Hezbollah would be a sustained military fire. We're talking an invasion into probably southern Lebanon from northern Israel. On the Israeli side, we could see the opposite occur with Hezbollah going into Israel. We're talking heavy casualties and heavy damage on both sides. And so the U.S. is trying desperately to prevent this from escalating any further. We're seeing statements from leaders all across the globe echoing that same sentiment that it's time for both Israel and Hezbollah to take a step back and to sort of settle those tensions. That being said, Hezbollah is in violation of the UN resolution that actually ended the last war between Israel and Lebanon. So from the Israeli perspective, they want to see Hezbollah go further north to honor the UN resolution that ended the last conflict in 2006. And that way, the tens of thousands of Israeli and Lebanese civilians at the border who have since been evacuated could go back home.
How does this fit into the ongoing war against Hamas?
Israel is slowly winding down its war in Gaza. They have completed much of the operations that they wanted to in Rafah. We had talked so much about how the world was concerned about what could happen in Rafah. Israel has obviously changed what it had planned on doing in Rafah to go along with sort of some of the U.S. concerns. They've done that. They have carried out most of their operations, and they still have some operations left ongoing, both in Rafah as well as in other parts of the country, to ensure Hamas can't reconstitute itself. But for the most part, we've heard from Israeli leaders that things seem to be winding down, which is also an important concept for what's happening in the north, because if the war in Gaza ends, the Israelis would have more resources to put towards the north. And so the big question that even predated October 7th was, is Israel's military prepared to handle a two-front war? And so what that means is fighting Hamas in Gaza to the west, and then fighting Hezbollah to the north. And so that was always a concern, and now they may not have to if they choose to go forward with a preemptive escalation towards Hezbollah.
And so there's a third group that's associated with Iran that's also causing trouble. Get us up to speed on the Houthis.
So the Houthis are based in Yemen, and since November, they have been targeting commercial vessels traveling around Yemen's coast, which is a very important waterway. About 10 to 15% of all global trade that travels through the maritime routes go through these waterways. Over the last several months, we've seen them carry out attacks, and the U.S. has now stationed naval personnel in the area to both prevent these attacks from happening, but also intercept attacks that are ongoing. And so these attacks from the Houthis became deadly for a second time earlier this week. They have sank now a second ship in these attacks, and so they've also now taken UN workers hostage. And so while the U.S. has conducted strikes over the last several months targeting the Houthis, there's no clear end in sight for this conflict.
And if all that's not enough, we've now had some meetings between the Russians and the North Koreans.
That's exactly right. Last week, President Putin traveled to North Korea where he met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, and so the U.S. is concerned about that relationship as it continues to grow. We heard U.S. officials express concern about the weapons that North Korea is providing to Russia for use in Ukraine, as well as concern about what advancements Russia could help North Korea make in a number of different ways.
Thank you, Mike. You can read Mike and the rest of our national security team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.